And now, the Pow Wow and How, Episode 2 Extravaganza.
Here come some men dressed in tights. Where are they from? Comic books. Saving the world day and night. Amazingly incredible comic books.
Okay. Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Pow.
Yeah, Dr. Pow is back, and so is Mr. Wow.
Mr. Wow, remember me?
And I have Pow Wow Comics mission here for you. Pow Wow Comics is here to make friends with all of the fun-loving comic book fans in the multiverse. While we do invite discussion that can occasionally border on passionate debate, we try to maintain a positive outlook by celebrating every kind of creative mind, attempting to bring our superhero fantasies to life through a multitude of artsy mediums like comic books, animation, live-action series, or blockbuster films. We love it all.
That is right, Dr. Pow. As your cohort, Mr. Wow. Last episode was great. You know, I might have missed somebody in the fan category.
Oh, right. We actually had a lot of backlash because of this, and we apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Our thoroughly researched show came up one short answer, we feel.
Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith. We apologize greatly to you, Kevin Smith, for missing you in the greatest fan category. However, you might have lost still to Stan the Man Lee.
Still would have lost.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Stan the Man Lee is still the greatest fan of all time. Although, we have a new guest on, our first guest ever for Pow Wow and How.
Live
guest.
from Michigan, our friend,
Uncle Phil.
Phil Lieblang.
Phil Lieblang. I call him Uncle Phil, but he's a brilliant man when it comes to anything comic books. So, we're glad to have you.
Well, thanks for the invite. I appreciate being here, and hope I can contribute something that will be fun and amusing for everyone.
Ooh, it's going to be a magical night.
It's going to be magical.
Yeah. Anytime that we share well, we've never shared microphones with Phil, but anytime we've shared a room and a couple beers with Phil, he enlightens us on some pretty outstanding comic book history. And we brought him on for our very first episode, not only for that, but also because he was the supplier for our entire collection.
That is true.
Or for most of it anyway.
A good portion of it.
Yeah, not all of it, but a decent chunk.
Do you want to speak on that? How did you acquire that collection yourself?
Yeah, how did that start with you?
I started buying when I had a paper route. I had a Detroit Free Press, which was a morning delivery, but I had to collect on Friday.
Yeah.
So every other Friday, I would cross 8 Mile Road, which separated the suburbs from the city of Detroit, and I'd go over to a drugstore called Preston's. And I would look at the comic book rack and usually buy one or two. And then I'd have to put them into my paper bag pouch where the papers were kept and try to keep it from getting a little destroyed. And for the most part, they came out pretty good by the time I got home. Not too many of them took on any serious damage.
I got to ask you, do you
Sure.
recall what you collected on Friday for a week of newspapers?
I think it was $1.25.
How much did you yield in comic books?
Well, back then, I think when I first started buying them, I was paying 25 cents, I think.
Oh,
Either
they were
20
25 centers, huh? Okay.
For the first one, yeah, I kind of really didn't buy them at the 12-cent era. They went up pretty fast. Once they broke that 12-cent barrier, I think 15 and then 20 came relatively quick after that. And then it stuck at 25 for a little bit, you know, and you could tell they were rising the price because they would all of a sudden that 25 cents said still 25 cents.
Oh, right.
So whenever you saw the still 25
Still
cents,
25 cents.
then you knew shortly thereafter it was going up to either 30 or 35 cents.
Oh, well,
That's
when
the way
I
they
was
do
a
it.
kid, I got a couple books that said still $3.99, I think, $4.99, something like that.
They stuck with that still.
Still, really roped me in that there was still $5 comics.
In other words, zap them up while you can at this price. I don't know. It's their way of saying you're going to get a nice little price increase coming your way soon.
For those that don't know out there, right now, Dr. Pow and I have about, and thanks to Uncle Phil, or as I call him, Phil, for about over 20,000 comic books. Yeah. So you were telling us about how much of the $1.25, well, that's what you collected from each door, right? How many clients did you have?
I had 50 to 60, I think, somewhere in that ballpark.
Nice.
And at this stage, I think I'm 13 or 14 years old.
Right. So right. $60 a week plus tips. I'm sure you got.
Yeah. Let's see. You guys made about a quarter. You really made about 10 to 15 a week. When you think about it.
Were you ever chased? Did you ever get chased by any dogs?
No, I never had any of that problem. I did have problems with people not paying me, insisting they pay me.
Oh, okay.
When that happened, you always had the shitty papers that were on the outside of the bag, so they got wet. They got the wet paper.
They got the wet paper. Yeah, I get you.
There's a favorite movie of Dr. Pow and Mr. Wow. It's called Better Off Dead with John Cusack. Did you ever see that film, Phil?
I do not think I have.
It was 80s. Mm-hmm. Well, he answers the door. The newspaper boy's there. He's collecting $2. Well, John Cusack doesn't have the $2, so he just closes the door. Throughout the rest of the movie, the newspaper boy shows up at just opportune times. $2. I want my $2. He chased him throughout the whole movie. It was hilarious.
Hunting for his $2. Yeah, that was Phil back in the day. Yeah, he can directly relate.
Well, that was the worst day collecting. It was a long day, Friday, and he delivered the comics for the people that got the Sunday paper. You had the two parts, the comics and the Sunday paper, and nowadays you get them together. But back then, as a delivery thing, they'd be separate. So he delivered them to the people that got the Sunday paper. Some people just got daily, so you still had to collect from them, but you weren't giving them one of the comics sections. So it just, I haven't even thought of that for a while. It's been a long time.
That's cool.
Nowadays, it's almost all adults just throwing them on your driveway. Back then, we had to put them wherever they wanted. Front door, side door, milk chute.
If they asked.
That's how you had to do it.
Not that print is dead, but I'm sure most people get it from their Facebook feed nowadays. Oh, my goodness.
So you pick up the comic books. What's the first one you remember picking up?
Well, the first one I got was a Fantastic Four one, and I think it was the first one with Thunder. So I think that's like 125, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay.
As far as numbers go, it kind of me and Mr. Wow sort of missed, I think, the real early part of Marvel. We were a little too young.
Just a little too young. You're right.
A little bit.
True.
By probably 7, 8 years, roughly, somewhere in that, maybe 9. So we were still getting early ones compared to nowadays, but they weren't those origin issues or really great ones that if you bought that for 12 cents would be, phenomenal. Collectibles to have now.
I actually have a question regarding that. When, throughout your gathering comics, did you realize that you had started a collection?
Didn't take long. I just kept them. My sisters, it's funny because they even said that they would, after I was done reading them, they would grab them and read them without my even knowing it.
Okay.
So I just had a pile of them and eventually had to put them into a box of some kind because it was before you had the backing boards and poly bags and the boxes specifically made to store your comics in.
Right.
So they were well read, and you could tell by looking at them that they and back then they never even considered the fact that they would be worth something down the line. They were just for reading when I was a kid. and that's all I did with them.
Now, when you guys were kids, was like the original Superman comic a collectible? Were people thinking of any comics as collectibles? They were.
Well,
Okay.
Yes.
They were.
Okay.
They were, but it was it's such a small fraction compared to today's mindset, today's market. It's just
The
completely
boom
different.
was in the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
When everybody got really big on it. Well, that's why it got oversaturated. They printed so many through the 90s.
Right.
And that completely kind of
They
just
kind of slowed
negated
down
any
on
sort of
that
collecting.
nowadays, but at first they were just throwing them out there
For sure,
in the
no
80s.
kidding.
If you would have been smart in the 70s, you could have really picked up some great comics without spending an arm.
See, and I was
Right.
and I was still just picking them up and reading them.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
That was it.
That was our interest back then, just reading them and enjoying them.
Probably around age 10 was when I got in, because I remember getting that first Luke Cage, or reading the first Luke Cage, which was a issue that I had with the top cut off.
Mm-hmm.
At Sal's Market, they used to cut the top off of the
Sweet Christmas.
so that they weren't as collectible. Now I understand in the collector's market, if you have some with that top cleanly cut off, by the manufacturer,
Right.
and you can tell that's like a valuable comic now.
You get something for it.
That's a weird one to me. It's funny because I must just bring back memories for a lot of people. Mr. Wow here,
Mr. Wow, yeah, he pulls them out of his pocket.
Memories.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I
think
the one thing I used to do as a kid, my earliest memory of collecting comics was a terrible mishap in my wanting them to be adless. I used to actually cut the ads out of my comics just so I only had pages of art. It was a terrible move. A good thing I kicked that habit real quick though. But yeah, well, in me, some of my earliest memories, Phil used to give me comics when we would go visit in Michigan.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was a big thrill for Gary
It
and
was.
me. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
we
huge.
used to sift through that collection all the time.
Oh yeah,
and
we
he
actually
had certain
got
ones to
look
show
through.
us.
Right.
What do you think is the prized comic book of your collection, Phil?
probably that. The more I was thinking about it, probably the one with the introduction of Wolverine.
Ooh,
That's a good one. Good
That is
choice.
that is a good one.
That was a
And
thing.
I got that one at the drugstore at Preston's when I was a kid. And at that drugstore, they all have a timestamp on the cover. So you'll see that on a lot of those books where they got the date
right.
stamped onto the cover of the comic. And that's how a lot of because back then, that's where you mainly got them was at drugstores.
You know,
It's at those spinner racks.
when we were going through your collection, we were wondering exactly, I wonder if these came from a library. Look, they're stamped with a date.
But that explains.
And
yeah.
that was it.
Yeah. And it's actually if you get the Overstreet Comic Guide, they explain that
Mm-hmm.
about the timestamp because I think it was a common practice back in the day to do that because it was mainly sold in drugstores. They
Right.
didn't have comic shops. That was something that was relatively a new thing in the 80s was the comic book shops. It would change the whole marketing of the comics.
In Detroit, was there one that popped up pretty quick when comic shops were coming about?
That's a good question. I think the one that I eventually bought most of mine from Comic Corner, I think they got established in the 80s. And they're still around, even though the owner has passed, but his son is carrying the torch and still
Nice.
running it. And they've got 2 locations, and it's just a great comic shop. They always have all current new issues of comics, plus a great variety of older comics you can buy. Some
Right.
of them hanging on the wall or under a glass case, and you can look at them. And if you're interested in purchasing them, you can buy them. I bought quite a few
I was gonna say,
from them.
some of your Spider-Man, is that where you collected those from, or was that
Yeah.
kind of piecemealed together? But so
That was piecemeal, but for a while there, he was selling them where you got a 25% discount on Wednesdays. So I would go in there on Wednesdays, and I bought an awful lot of the earlier Spider-Mans at his place because that was just such a good deal. Even sometimes I'd say, Lee, give me the Wednesday deal today. And he would occasionally, but sometimes he said, I can't do it.
It's not Wednesday?
He was pretty good. I would push him a little bit, and he'd kind of look at me and shake his head. Nah, I can't do it now because he's out to make a buck. That was his business.
Sure.
Right.
And but he was great. He really did. He did a lot of nice things over the years, and I'm glad to see that they're still there. I walked in, I think, right before Christmas. I could buy my nephews some gift cards there because they're into collecting. The ones that live
nice.
in the area anyway. It's a great store. It really is. He'll hold them for you. He's got a box, and they give you 25% off new comics when you have them.
No kidding, 25. That's a sweet deal.
That is a good deal.
It's a good deal, and it's always been like that as far as the 25% off.
We were thinking 20.
Yeah, dude.
No,
I mean, even 10.
We opened a shop. We were thinking our members get 20.
Yeah, we were being generous.
Well,
At 25 of
I
it.
think 20 is a damn good deal.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with it because a lot of places don't give anything, or they might give 10%.
Right,
So,
yeah, 10 is a good pull list. I used to have one, and it seemed common and things like that. But yeah, no, that's awesome for loyalty and things, and it seems to have worked. Like you said, 2 shops and 30 years later, 40 years? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a good solid 30 years that I've gone there.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit more in 30 years, but yeah, it's a good place, and I still pop in every now and then, and they bundle stuff. I look for the ones where you can get at least 10 in a row, consecutive issues, so there's no interruption.
True, I agree. I actually like reading in trade format, and usually that's about 5 to 6 issues of a
Right.
run.
Unless it's a badass cover.
Yeah, good point.
I'm
Occasionally, I'll thumb through a 25-cent bin and just look for covers.
even for $1, I'll buy a good cover.
Yeah, no kidding. I know. How much have you spent for a good? I probably spent $5 on a
real
good Joker
cover.
Yeah. No kidding. Not even knowing what's on the inside.
There's some great covers out there, that's for sure.
Well, in all honesty, for me, the pathway into the comic book itself was the TV.
The cover.
No, the TV.
Oh, the TV. The TV.
Sure.
Okay.
I used to wake up at 5 years old watching Superman with George Reeves and Noel Neal. Jack Larson as Jimmy Olsen was my hero, and
Sure.
Perry White's Great Caesar's Ghost.
Oh, great Caesar's Ghost.
What a great show.
It was a good show. It really was. The special effects were so-so, though. I always thought for Superman, he didn't look all that strong. You know what I mean? Because I think they could only do so much with the special effects.
But he was
TV.
He was a decent sized man.
Well, no, I'm not talking about. He was a good Superman. I mean, when you look at him in the comic drawings, he was a great Superman. He really was.
I'm going to let Dr. Pow tell you a little bit about how the special effects were done for Superman.
Oh, the wiring backwards? Are we talking the Shazam?
Shazam.
When it was originally created.
And that's the serial that led right into the TV series. They
For
used
Superman.
to even show the old serial.
Well, yeah, his flight technique in, I guess it was more Shazam that I'm thinking, Captain Marvel. But my favorite was jumping off of a cliff and doing a tuck and roll right at the end.
Yep.
And they would cut it right before the tuck and roll, but they just had a man
For
falling,
his landing.
falling in style, to get that flight technique. But
They used dummies. They used wires.
yeah, a bunch of dummies.
They tried some practical effects. Really interesting background to it. And I believe on powwowcomics.com, you can get a link to that series with Shazam.
It's true.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, don't quote us on it. Actually, it's there. It should be there. I will. I'm actually gonna credit Phil to a lot of my comic book upbringing. Outside of my dad, who in high school, your nickname on the swim team was Iron Man. you were like a Batman diehard. So of course my upbringing was going to be surrounded by comics, but Phil himself taught me, I think, the true respect of the production of comics, like how to truly take a comic book out of a plastic bag without letting the tape touch the book. And uh, you introduced me to Thanos. Like you brought a whole world of researching comics into my understanding the genre. But we went to go see Avengers, the first one, and at the end of it, Thanos turns around and gives that little grin. And I'm still pretty early in reading old comics, and you were a huge Jim Starlin fan, and you were just like, dude, that's Thanos. And I was like, what's going on? And you introduced me.
Yeah.
Now they describe villains in films just in general as Thanos level threats. They call them like Thanos-esque villains to compare them to how big of a villain he was. But you were groundbreaking in introducing me to things like that. So really appreciate you as far as that goes.
Well, I didn't realize that. So I'm glad that you got a lot out of it. It seems like it's taken a good hold on you, and that appreciation for the art form, it's something else, isn't it? You look back at some of the characters and the villains, and for the most part, comic books have it all. They got just about everything you want.
It's true.
In a story.
Plus, if
really
you were a 98-pound weakling, you could send away and figure out how to be built like Charles Atlas.
That's right. That's right. Look at me.
With the help of comic books.
Well, they were always in the comic books.
Always in there. Yeah, because who would like getting sand kicked in their face?
And you know what was a big one that was in our era, Phil, and only in our era? I don't think they still make them. Remember the dingo boots?
Yeah.
Because they were a
still
big
make
comic
those?
book.
Nice.
Yeah, you're right about that. That was a big thing. That's right. The ads in the comics. That's one of the fun things is picking up one and it brings back memory on some of those things that used to be sold and marketed in the comic books, and all the little practical joke things, the little corners,
X-ray vision,
X-ray glasses, the whoopee cushions. I mean, they really did have a lot of funny things. And I was always the submarine was the one I almost ordered. Remember, they had the submarine.
Yes.
And I could never figure out how they could do it, but it was worth a shot to see if it actually was true. But I never did.
I one time drew the pirate, sent it in,
Oh, did you?
and somewhere, I don't think I still have it, but they sent back to me, you're kind of young to come to the University of Pittsburgh's art studio, but that was a good job. They actually replied.
Good job, but
I thought it was outstanding. I wanted that
college
$10,000
entry.
scholarship.
Yeah. That was at least they replied to you. Did you have take it? You had to supply your age, so they had to know whether you were actually somebody that. Target market.
There was a form to fill out.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That used to be in almost all of the comics, and obviously it must have worked.
Oh, sure.
Somebody was doing it.
I drank milk as a kid after all those got milk ads, and I am not a regular milk drinker. But they convinced me at one point, like, I want strong bones. So they're good at selling something. I was trying to relate to you guys, actually. I feel like they gave up on like those, clip in, send back kind of promotions and stuff like that when I was a child. But occasionally there would be like send in for a power ring or things like that. I think I swore one time I got a Green Lantern ring or something related to the such. I might be making up this memory, but I think I just want to relate.
What was your favorite age of comics?
What was your favorite era of comics?
Favorite era was, I think, had to be the Silver Age, like right before I started buying. Probably, when Spider-Man was introduced, all those early Marvels.
Yeah.
You look back on them now, the stories are still pretty good. They were simple to read. The art was good. and they just kept getting better and better. They aged well, and in all honesty, I think that today's comics just aren't put together as well.
You know what? I will say one thing. Today's comics still borrow the formula, I think, from that Silver Age, especially like Flash and Green Lantern's redesigns. And like you said, Spider-Man's history is like still something that most comic book writers follow in the sense of a tragic hero. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that era was extraordinary.
I like with Spider-Man, they always keep a run out there where he's still young.
Oh, yeah. They have to de-age him all the time, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to move on now that they have Miles Morales, which is pretty interesting. Honestly, they've done some fantastic stuff with the whole Spider-Verse in general, but they're finally letting Peter have more storylines where he's aged or moved on, retired, and it's kind of cool to see. I do have to bring up one thing, though. You did let me borrow a comic book one time, Phil. A Superman comic from that same era of the Silver Age, where I think it was Lex Luthor, the Tinkerer, and I can't remember the third foe.
Oh, wow.
They accidentally ran into each other at a county fair.
At the county fair.
On a slide.
That's Silver Age for you.
They were riding a slide, and they were all saying out loud how much they despised Superman. And I was like, Phil really did collect every single comic possible, because you did introduce me to some great storylines through Marvel. You were right. They were really paying attention to like making a statement, a lot of social change and stuff like that on the Marvel side. And then you have these DC comics where it's like fun-loving and super friends level challenges to face. But
Gary brings me some, or maybe Phil introduced it. They do the crossovers with the Hanna-Barbera characters. Those are awesome.
Oh, right. Yeah. They've been doing some great ones recently like that. Another one in the comics right now is Power Rangers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I know that's more my era, but these crossovers are pretty fun. It reminds me of the old Scooby-Doo crossovers. I guess that is Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, right.
But like when he met the Mamas and the Papas or the Harlem Globetrotters, those were fantastic.
The Banana Splits.
Yeah, Banana Splits. Right.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to say my first big introduction, too, when I was in like the 4th or 5th grade, was I had a friend of mine, his brothers collected comics, and they're all DCs. And I go to his house, and he would give me a stack of about 20 of them to bring home and read, and I returned them all. But boy, oh boy, you talk about a Christmas morning kind of feeling, because when I got a new stack to bring home,
right.
I just was in heaven, and I read them from cover to cover and put them off to the side and reread them until he says, "Hey,
I want these
give
back.
them back and I'll get you some more." No, he just he got them back. His brothers didn't care. I think they just threw them in a paper bag, but they used to buy them, and it was mostly it was the old Green Lantern and Flash and Justice League and Batman, Detective.
Right.
Those are, as a kid, those were great comics, but you read them now and they're just terrible stories.
Some of them. It
depends on what you look for in a story,
I guess. Yeah, my dad's pretty open-minded when it comes to Golden Age.
I like the goofy,
really
but I've always liked the goofy.
Yeah.
Campy, goofy.
And the Golden Age was pretty campy and goofy, but you know what? It was some fun reading, and at that time, that was a target, was young kids. And that's what they wrote for. They wrote for young kids. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget what a big treat it was getting those comics and taking them home and going downstairs and just reading them in the basement and keeping them in the bag he gave me and getting a fresh set every now and then. One of those things, I don't think of it often, but when I do, it's like, man, that was very nice of him to do that. And I never heard anything bad about it in the sense that they were ruined or anything. And
well, in that regard, you paid it forward very well. All right. Well,
if you need to use the restroom, Phil,
at any point in
use
time.
it now.
Are you still?
I see.
I
see about.
I probably got about a half an hour left in me. Just to
you
let
got
you
to
know.
pens. I got you. Okay, so Philly, Uncle Phil, otherwise, or we call Phil a lot of things. He actually brews one of our favorite beers of all time, and if it ain't Phil's, it ain't shit.
That's right. Rodunculus.
The Radunculus.
Good beer, man.
But Phil, we've come to that point of the first guest interview where we're gonna grill you.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So you better get ready. This is a segment that I'm probably gonna try to introduce to other guests in the interview process, but it works so well with your name. It's called the Phil Grill. And the Phil Grill, and we're gonna grill you on some current things going on in the superhero world, mostly in film, because most people pay attention to movies and series. We'll start out with Marvel, since you're a Marvel head. The MCU is something extraordinary, and they're about to hit a renewal of sorts. The next Thanos-level villain, as we were suggesting before, Thanos-level threats, is Kang the Conqueror. Now, I know he's been more sexy in the newer comics and things as far as connecting storylines and timelines, since he is a time god of sorts. But what's your experience on Kang the Conqueror?
For the most part, reading old Avengers in some of the hardcover showcases that they would put together, where you got to read a section of old issues in a row. And King, I think he was one of the first 10 Avengers comics. I think.
That's cool.
So he's been around quite some time.
Right.
As a bad guy for the Avengers. I don't know if he's ever really been showcased in any other of the superhero comics besides them. It's possible, but I'm unaware of it.
I got a big tidbit for you. Now, this is kind of information from maybe more my era, but he has been revealed to be Nathaniel Richards, which is a long distant relative, like centuries down from the Richards family, and Reed himself. Right. So you're a big Fantastic Four guy. Are you excited for the new Fantastic Four movie in the MCU?
Yeah, they haven't made a really great one yet. The last one was not good.
Right.
At all.
At all. Yeah.
It wasn't. It was kind of sad. I don't even know why it was made. No idea. Sometimes they do things that you just shake your head thinking, what's going on? What are they even thinking of?
Honestly, you can go back to, is it Roger Corman?
Roger Corman.
The Fantastic Four. And it's something about studio rights. They always...
Securing studio rights.
They always need to hold on to it. So they'll make these awful projects sometimes just so they don't lose it.
I remember you could buy it. They were selling it.
I have it.
We own it. Yeah. If you ever want to see it, let me know. I'll bring it.
We got the bootleg.
Next time I come for a visit, we'll have to whip it out there and take a look at it.
You'll whip it.
It's on tape though, right?
It's no, we got it on DVD.
Got it on disc.
Yeah,
you got it on disc. Okay, I remember
it's Blu-ray.
It was on tape where you could buy it, and I came real close to buying it back in the day. Real close. That would have been like 25, 30 years ago.
Still a little bit better than the last Fantastic Four movie they made.
Is it really?
No, I don't know. It was awful.
No,
very bad film. No.
But I think you're going to like Kang.
Kang is going to be a great threat. I think it's going to tie in a lot of new stuff for the MCU. Like I said, it's a renewal, and he's a time god, so he's going to start bringing in other timelines and things. Another person who's god level threat, Adam Warlock. What do you know about Adam?
Well, he's been around quite a bit. I remember reading the introduction to Warlock when he was created. It was in the Fantastic Four.
Oh, okay.
Trying to remember the name of the title, but he kind of came out of a cocoon.
He did.
Yeah, he does.
He does in the film.
He also is in a cocoon in the film.
Yeah. He was a newly created man,
right?
More or less. They tried to control him, and I don't think they could control him, and he kind of went on a little bit of a, rampage, and I don't remember if he just disappeared or what happened to him, but that was going back into I think I would have to say mid-60s.
Right.
time era. Plus, it was probably a mid '60s numbered Fantastic Four.
Well, yeah.
It was quite some time ago.
It was very early on, and they were starting to work more crossovers in, I feel like, at that time, because my earliest memory when you introduced me to Thanos was the actual Infinity Gauntlet series, where Adam Warlock basically came up with the whole plan to trick Thanos into beating himself, of course.
Right. Which was the only way he ever lost anything.
Right.
Beat himself. That's just...
You can't beat him any other way, but he can beat himself.
No, he can beat himself. It's such an easy way out because really, technically, there's no way he should have lost in any of the
It's an ego.
Build-up was so big. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always his hubris, and then they made him fall in love with death. I actually like the comic book telling where he can't please death ever, and he thinks he needs to kill half of the universe to do it, and it doesn't work, and like he's so lost. He's just like a boy the whole time. But the movie explained it differently and very interesting. I think both stand on their own for sure.
Did you see any of the Loki series, Phil?
You know what? I started watching it and I just kind of forgot about it. So I know my stepson watched and he liked it a lot.
It's a good series, and that's where they introduced Marvel's new Kang or film Kang.
Oh yeah, right at the tail end of that.
He's
the man at the end,
there now for a little bit.
He who remains.
Okay.
He who remains.
Okay, so moving on from Adam Warlock, who I tout as Marvel's pretty boy, I kind of want to talk on She-Hulk. Now, I'm sure you didn't watch the series, but
I did not.
You have any comic book history knowledge on She-Hulk?
Well, I think I bought the very first issue.
Nice.
I don't know what happened to it. I read it a little bit and lost interest in it.
Okay.
Because I was a Hulk fan, so because of that, I did, buy some She-Hulk
right
when it first came out. And there were moments there where it wasn't a bad storyline, but yeah, I guess after all, my budget was limited, even though they were much cheaper back then.
So you had to preserve.
You had to be choosing what you bought. I know there were people that were snapping up virtually everything that was there that they could buy, and I just wasn't one of those because I didn't have the budget to do that.
Right. Well, it's been fun. It's a good series. We're big fans of it. We would suggest it, but it's goofy.
It is goofy.
Yeah.
It's not what you would expect. Now, we've talked about this other guy, and I transitioned to him from She-Hulk because they did an incredible fourth wall break on She-Hulk. Spoiler alert. Because there is a great fourth wall break to this other character, Deadpool. He's finally coming over to the MCU. Now, do you have any comic book history of Deadpool or mostly the films?
I do not. Mostly the film.
Mostly the films. Okay. Well, in your perspective on Deadpool with the films, how do you feel?
I think Deadpool, for me anyway, because I know Mr. Wow absolutely loved it when it came out. And I thought it was kind of a little bit campy, corny, because of how he...
And Mr. Wow loved it?
You're right, yeah. How could he have loved campy and corny?
I should have wore the brown pants.
Hey, but
actually, after he kind of explained it a little to me, and I saw it again, and I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah,
then that's how it's supposed to be. So he's a smart-ass, wisecracking character, and I didn't know much about him.
Right,
and it really was a good movie.
Right, the way they parody and skewer and take the whole genre and flip it on its head, I think, is just too great through Deadpool.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
Super fun that he's going to get to have now the whole Marvel universe, basically, the film universe to play with. So, changes things.
It does change things.
Except for Spider-Man. Spider-Man's still kind of tied up at Sony. I know he's your boy, but Sony's been doing some weird things with Spider-Man. I don't know if you have any opinions on that. Craven the movie's coming. We've got a Madam Web movie coming. Yeah, I know. I know these are names that you're just like, what? Why?
They're trying to get everything everybody into the act, I guess, huh?
They're kind of another one that's trying to secure film rights, I think, just by pumping them out as much as they can. They do allow Marvel to use Spider-Man in the MCU, but it's basically they've got chains on everything else in the Spider-Verse. Right. All right, now I'm going to close the door on Marvel. We're jumping over to the DC universe, and they're having a full-on rebirth of sorts right now. Just like yesterday or 2 days ago, probably when people hear this a few weeks ago or whatever, James Gunn released a full new slate of films that seems pretty extraordinary. He's rebooting Superman. Now, we've had some reboots, but what's your opinion on rebooting franchises?
Well, it's hard to say. If it's done well, it's certainly going to be enjoyable. But a lot of times, it's like, why bother? They're in it, I think, more to make a buck than to make an artistic statement. That's a lot of the stuff. A lot of
the times. I get you. Yeah, that makes sense. This one comes from a place of passion, but I definitely understand where it's like Warner Brothers is not going to make a Superman film for 10-year stretches, so somebody's going to have to put something out for them. I'm glad that it is James Gunn for that.
Well, I tell you, he really did great on the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
Those were just really good. He did the first one, right, or was it the second?
No, he did them both. No, you're right. He actually is getting to cap it off with this third one, and I kind of think that he's going to kill the whole franchise because he's jumping over to DC. I think he's going to maybe off them all. I don't know if Marvel will let him do it, but that seems like the way to go out.
Oh, Deadpool?
No, in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh.
But you think so?
I think so. Personally, I think it kills his storyline with this team of Guardians, and that they can set up a new Guardians from the wake, probably.
Yeah, maybe. I never even thought of that. It's very, very possible because the Guardians in the movie are nothing like the Guardians in the original version of the comic book.
Right.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so you can jump and go any which way. I mean, they have so many other projects they can focus on, too. But back over to DC, Brave and the Bold is happening, and we're finally going to get... No, I shouldn't say finally, but the Bat family is going to be explored, and his son, Damian Wayne, is going to be Robin. How do you feel about that?
I don't have a problem with that. It's just... seems to me like that would be appropriate. I just saw HBO just had a new, animated one with his son and Superman's son. I don't know if you saw that yet.
Oh, right. The two sons, right? Yeah.
It was all right. Yeah, it was all right. Wasn't the greatest thing, but it wasn't bad.
Right.
And I think that would work with his son being the new Robin. I don't see why not.
And that's probably how they're going into the future. They're actually going to start crossing over their animated projects with their movies. So they're going to try to link more stories together and maybe open up to, I guess, more B-list characters. So we are going to see a lot of family, a lot of legacy, a lot of things like that being played out.
They're going to be doing an animated series on HBO Max with Creature Commandos.
It's with
Creature Commandos. Now that's a new one. You got to explain that one to me.
Yeah, Creature Commandos is like like Guardians of the Galaxy for the monsters of the DC universe, basically.
Swamp Thing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few. I don't know if Swamp Thing's on the team for the show. I know that he's bringing back Weasel, Sean Gunn.
Man-Bat?
Should be.
Man-Bat should be.
Frankenstein, I think, is on that team.
Anyway, that one's caught my interest, Phil. I don't really know that much. I just know that James Gunn announced the title of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's going to be an animated series on HBO Max.
Most of his stuff are titles that he's bringing out. But we are getting a new Swamp Thing. Do you know anything? Did you ever read any Swamp Thing?
I don't know anything about it, but I can understand that.
Right. Yeah, it's fashionable. Do you know anything about Booster Gold?
Booster Gold.
I don't know much about Booster Gold, so see that you really get into some of the the minor
Yeah, the wild characters.
Well, Booster Gold's going to be a favorite of Mr. Wow's because
100%.
he's corny.
He's so
goofy.
corny. Well, the cool part about Booster Gold is he's from the future, but he wants to be a superhero. In his timeline, there's like not really superheroes because they have all the tech in the world. So he goes back in time to like Superman's era just so he can be a superhero, and it's funny. It's good.
He's funny.
Okay.
Yeah, should be a good one. I guess the other big one for me is the Lanterns show. It's just called Lanterns, but it's going to focus on Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. And going back to when you introduced me to Emerald Dawn 2, I feel like there's a lot of great storylines from the comics with the kind of, I guess, yeah, exactly. The core as a police force.
nutshell.
Yeah, in a nutshell. Exactly that. No, the having the Green Lantern Corps as a police force, but having them have human issues on the side and in things like that, I think will be fun. You read some Green Lantern in your history?
Yeah. When I was a kid, that was one of my favorite characters. When I would get those collections of comic books from my friend, I don't know who my favorite was. It wasn't between Green Lantern and probably Superman, and Flash was pretty close there too. I enjoyed Batman, but he wasn't one of my top characters. I always, Batman is extremely popular and all that, but I still am amazed that he's still with us, because how he hasn't been killed yet, I have no idea.
Yeah, he's just a human.
And then in the latest film, he takes a blast to
bomb
the
to
face.
the
Nuclear explosion.
Yeah, not nuclear, but yeah, it was an explosion to the face. He also falls off a building and just kind of rolls it off. Impressive. Batman, I think, might be immortal. Who knows? Speaking of that...
It's kind of like John Wick. It's very similar.
Yeah.
Robin's pretty immortal, too. Come on now.
Yeah.
He's a child doing that stuff, too.
He wears underoos.
He wears literally spandex. Like, Batman has, like, this armored suit and stuff, and Robin's like, I'm going to go out in my circus outfit.
The Boy Wonder.
And Batman actually is so popular that they're keeping the other Batman around, and the Joker movie. So the DC universe is starting this Elseworlds thing where they're going to do other projects that aren't in the main canon as well, but Batman is driving that. So how'd you feel about the last Batman?
The last Batman I thought was a good movie. I thought it was a very good movie.
Agreed.
And, I enjoyed it.
Should have been nominated.
Oh, God, seriously.
They picked 10 movies.
And it should have been.
The Batman franchise is the best for DC for making movies.
100%. Or any content, because it is relatable in that sense. Like you said, he's a man and can get hurt by these bullets and things like that. But they're making a TV series of The Penguin with Colin Farrell in that. I think that should be pretty fun. Yeah,
okay.
So he's going to continue his run as that, and they're going to do a couple other like TV shows, but also they're making part 2 of the Batman as well right now. Any guesses? Do you see the storyline going any which way?
No, I can't even give you a good feedback on that.
Ever read Hush?
I think I did read it.
Okay.
It was a while ago.
Now, Thomas Elliot was his childhood friend or whatever. The Waynes were friends with the Elliots. That was mentioned a lot in the Batman movie. I'm feeling it's leaning towards introducing maybe that character, or at least using that storyline. So if you want to revisit, I'm thinking Hush is probably going to be a big part of the saga. Them or the Court of the Owls, one or the other, or both are going to be a part of the saga.
Okay.
One more, Flashpoint. Now, we've talked about Flash at extended length. You think certain storylines have a problem with the Flash in his power because he should never have any issue, specifically dodging bullets, right?
I think the best illustration of that was in one of the X-Men movies where the mansion was exploding, I believe, and Quicksilver came upon it.
Yeah, and
and
he could outrun
got
everything.
everyone out, and everything was in super slow motion as he moved around.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was how the Flash should be in the TV series and all of them. We watched the TV series quite a bit. I lost interest in, I think, the 4th or 5th season. Sometimes you just get tired of a show because they just
sort of rehash it. Yeah, they keep rehashing the same things.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Pow does too.
I'm still watching it.
Mr. Wow hangs in there, man.
I think you're a bigger fan than I am. I mean, to a point, it's just like, move on.
Mr. Wow has fandom endurance.
He does.
Yeah, he'll stick it out.
More, no question about it.
Mr. Wow keeps hoping they'll book him on one of those shows.
Yeah.
Actually, I was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Were you in the bathroom?
Actually, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they did a scene where it was Chicago. We were in downtown L.A., and everything was getting blown up and all that kind of stuff. It was big season finale. I was I got booked with my car. I get to be in my car as it's tearing down the road, and Daisy's running up the street, and she runs past my car, and I jump out of my car, and I run away. I did good.
You were okay.
Monumental.
I want to see that.
Pretty monumental. Yeah.
I agree.
So my question for you, Phil, about the Flash specifically is, how many bullets is too many bullets for Flash to dodge?
Well, I don't know if there's such a thing, because they should be fast enough to pretty much avoid them all.
There's not a specific lineup of bullet shots that you can at least hit him. Hit him with one?
No.
He should be able to disappear from your eyesight.
Yes.
You know, with
some
papers flying around the room. That's what it should be.
Timelines. How do we feel, all of us, about Ezra Miller continuing as the Flash?
Well, I think they're bumping him off.
Yeah, they should. He's a complete moron. I'm sorry.
I'm with that.
No, we agree.
I mean, okay. I know celebrities have had their issues in the past and thinking they're Jesus and stuff like that, but he broke laws and he groomed people, and it was a freaky situation. I think they should part from Ezra Miller, but
he did too much. He went way overboard. I understand giving people a second chance and all that. I'm all for that, but it's like stop already.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
It was every 2 months, and it would be like something. I would just like pop on the TV. Right. Oh, Ezra Miller did something different. Yeah.
Who would you cast?
Oh, if you could cast a new Flash.
I don't know. You know that I can't tell you that.
You're not going to cast me, Phil? Thanks a lot.
He's going Dr. Pow as the Flash.
Dr. Pow's got my vote.
Woo!
I'm sure that's going to carry a shitload of weight.
It is, actually, with all of our listeners.
When all the listeners hear it.
Yeah. Once we get this to go viral, then we'll start the campaign. Dr. Pow for Flash.
I'm sure Audrey's going to listen to it. Probably Charlie and Lori.
If any of our listeners are curious, those are all family members. Well,
you got to start somewhere.
You know what? That concludes my Phil Grill for you.
That was the Phil Grill.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy. We don't go grilling that often.
Yeah, no kidding. I know, right? It was pretty mild. No spice to my grill.
I thought it was tough. You know, you're throwing stuff at me that in all honesty, I didn't think about. So.
We knew that. I mean, we knew that would be, but you still gave great opinions on it, and that's what we really want. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's cool. Hey, I got one for both of you, and I don't know if Gary even knows this one. There's movies coming out this year, right? Do you know any of the ones coming out this year, Phil? For comic books exclusively.
I really don't.
Quantumania is coming up with the previously mentioned Kang. And
it's the Ant-Man movie.
It's Kang versus Lang. It kind of rhymes. So it's going to be done in the Dr. Seuss style of...
Oh, dang.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Kabang. Anyway, that one's coming. Guardians of the Galaxy 3's coming. Maybe the Flash.
Which one?
If you want to push that a little bit more, you could have me in that movie then, too.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Lee Blang.
The
Blang.
Going to push that theme. I guess that would work.
The Aang theme.
But the movie coming next year that I really want to mention here because I'm sure none of us have heard of it. Hanuman.
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 Hanuman? All right. What's that about?
Hindu mythology. The monkey commander of the monkey army. And there's a full film going to be released this year in the United States.
It's a U.S. film, or is it made in India?
I don't know that answer, Dr. Powell.
Okay, because I watched some of RRR. I just wanted to mention that on the podcast in case if anybody wanted to give me some brownie points or something.
And I watched The Gods of Egypt.
Phil, what was the most unique movie you watched in the last year?
Good Lord. I'm not sure.
Good Lord, I'm not sure, huh?
That
Interesting
was a good
film. That
film.
was a different one, for sure.
I couldn't even answer that.
I got a question for you.
What? Go ahead.
Did you watch Knives Out?
I did not.
Okay.
You'd like Knives Out, I think. It's fun.
Would that qualify as your most unique movie?
Oh, Glass Onion was the sequel.
Oh, no. The most
follow-up,
unique
but-
movie I saw this year is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
It was a multiverse film.
And it
All
was
right.
it was wild.
What's that about? Is it on now?
Yeah, you can find it some places. Specifically, it's about a lady living a normal life, and then she has like tax problems and very normal, trivial things happen. But then all of a sudden, her husband pulls her aside, and he's like acting different, and he's telling her he's from another universe where he's on the run from these like time jumping like demons basically that are trying to collapse all of the timelines, and he chose her to help him save the multiverse, I should say.
Correct.
Interesting.
That was a good synopsis, Derek.
Thank you. Yeah, and then from there, it spins into a lot of deep, like, interpersonal history, but it goes through different timelines where each one's a branch of possibilities. Like, they have hot dog fingers, so it gets really weird, but it's cool. We try to keep up as much as possible. Wish we did more comic book reading as our Uncle Phil over here, but he keeps us up on that.
But you keep us honest there, so that's nice for us.
I do my best.
Yes. You've been fantastic, Uncle Phil, this whole time.
Well, I appreciate that. I think you're being a little kind. It was a different experience for me here.
Yeah. First time podcasting, huh, for you?
Yeah. Always enjoyed talking to two of my favorite people on the planet, Dr.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Or Dr. Pow and Mr. Wow.
Right, he's still working on his doctorate, but thank you. I appreciate that.
And how?
And you're our how.
I'll take that. I'll graciously accept that. You're Mr. How.
Well, if you had some fun, we'll probably do it again in a couple of weeks.
Yes. And
No,
you're always welcome.
Not with me because we'll be in Florida.
Oh, no. We're not on a set schedule. We're waiting till you're back from Florida.
Oh, all right, you said a couple weeks. We won't be back in a couple weeks.
We're calling you in Florida. We're going to grill you from the sand.
Well, in that situation, I'll probably will have some beer by my side. So
there you go.
A
little
more
loosey
interesting
goosey.
of a conversation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
All right, guys.
Yeah. For all of our fans out there, thank you, Phil, for joining us.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it. And we'll be in contact, of course. Mr. Wow, you want to give us...
We should be coming in the spring.
Yeah, we might even visit.
I'll let you know for sure.
Barfly's already excited at the prospect.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right. I should be able to do that.
Enjoy. Tell Barfly hello. Give Michelle a kiss. And we'll see you soon.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Yes, thank you, Phil. Toodles.
You're welcome. Bye.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.